Ready?
Yeah.
Failure.
Do I stop it?
I just came from the skate park where I had the chance to talk to a Australian ex-military Trump supporter. The story goes, I was skateboarding and his son was there and we had a few words. And then I introduced myself to the father. And then somehow we got into a conversation about Trump. Actually, not somehow. I mentioned I had just been on vacation in the US and that I was lucky enough to leave on inauguration day. To which he replied, that he was that he's a that he doesn't mind Trump. Um, he decided to talk a little bit about why he liked Trump, and I tried to find points of agreement. So, for example, I think that Trump canceling the TPP is a pretty good decision. I think that Hillary Clinton is pretty awful. So did he. And that the media hasn't always been fair to Trump. So we could agree on all these things. And luckily enough, because otherwise I imagine the conversation wouldn't have went as long. It could have ended abruptly, of course, when he decided to tell me that all lefties are arty-farty and that why are they protesting Trump? He's won. They should just shut up. Trump has won. There I could have, disagreed with him quite a bit, but I was really intrigued. I wanted to hear what, an ex-military Australian thinks about Trump. He told me that he thinks Trump is really behind the U.S. military and that he has done some time in Iraq himself. And that, the U.S. is the world police and they have to be the tough cop on the beat. He did admit that the U.S. has invaded several countries over its history. He even went as far back as Vietnam, which I was glad about. He used the word invasion. I don't know if he would agree if I was to say Invasion Day here, but he certainly said that the U.S. has invaded many countries. He also, said that it was a good thing that they were the world police because someone has to be tough on terrorism. And here is where the conversation really went, I think, south. He had a few examples which I consider pretty extreme. So one of the examples is he was saying that how to deal with terrorism. And one example, he mentioned the new president of the Philippines, Duarte. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but this is the same guy that, Amnesty International is saying that it's quite possible that his war on drugs constitute crimes against humanity. And I've seen the UN's flag similar warnings. And he was saying, that this Duterte's war on drugs is one way that you deal with terrorism. And even had another Philippines example. He was saying during the American-Philippines War, which was at the turn of the, 20th century, 19th, 20th century, that there was this general, General Blackjack Pershing, and the example he gave is that General Pershing captured, 50 Muslim terrorists and lined them up and had his soldiers cover the bullets in blood, and they shot 49 of them. And on the 50th told them to go tell everybody else what happened. This is how he says that terrorism should be dealt with. And I mean, I was shocked and dismayed when he said it, and somehow the conversation kept flowing. But what I did say is that, should we punish everyone because of a few extreme events? Should we create policy based on extreme events? He brought up Berlin and other terrorist attacks, and my response was, should we spy on our whole population because there's a few extremists? Or should we invade a whole country because of a few extremists? Or should we deny entry to refugees, all of them, because of a few possible criminals? Here, he used another example, which I've heard before, and it's the bowl of M&Ms or bowl of Skittles example that Trump also used. And the idea is, would you eat a bowl of Skittles if you knew one was poisoned? And here, I don't know how you can equate refugees with a bowl of Skittles, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. Are we going to collectively punish everyone, even though the U.S. has one of the most stringent intake processes for refugees? I mean, we have to be realistic. Another thing we talked about was gun reform. He was saying that his friend is a horrible shooter, and he's been in the military, but his friend has a gun license, but he doesn't. So for some reason, they think that he's a risk because he's been in the military, so he doesn't have a gun license. And I guess he was talking up the fact that the U.S. has somewhat decent gun laws. And I was saying, once again, obviously there's some decent reforms that we could do. Back in 2000, the U.S. used to have a law against owning automatic, semi-automatic weapons, and that's a decent reform. Why doesn't the U.S. do that? I'm not too sure about the gun laws in Australia. Obviously, they're more strict. But he didn't fully agree with me on the U.S. having stricter, modest gun reforms. And that's okay. I didn't think we were going to agree on everything. And then he told me another story about him in the military. And this one was that he was with some Afghan soldiers. I think they were being trained. And he decided to swing his gun around, to which the Afghan soldiers were like, no, that's dangerous. Which I have to go with these Afghan soldiers on this one. And he decided that this was a teachable moment. So what did he do? He took his gun off and he put it on the ground. And then he commanded his gun to shoot. He said, "Shoot, gun, shoot." And then one of the Afghan soldiers laughed. He took this to mean that there was some understanding and perhaps he got the joke. Then he picked up the gun, took off the safety, and pointed it at the soldiers. And he said, "Is this dangerous now?" And I said, "It's definitely dangerous." What kind of lesson is that? I mean, I don't know where the logic is in there. I can see what he's getting at, but at the same time, you're pointing a gun at a whole bunch of people. I would be really worried. I've got an even more disturbing story that he told me, and that's another lesson on how to deal with terrorism. Apparently, he something happened, and he knew one of the interpreters, or perhaps one of the Afghan informers that they had at the base, knew who the person was who did it. So he went up to him, and he had a tough talk. He said, "Listen, I know you know, and I know where you live, and I know you have 2 sons, so you better tell us." And the moral of the lesson for him was that this is what you have to do. This is how you combat terrorism, and the end of the story ends with this interpreter or informer leaving the base and not being seen again after a week. Yeah. So I don't even know what to say, but I guess I didn't challenge him as much as I would if I was speaking to a friend. But I said, hitting things with a hammer, like the US hit Fallujah back in 2004, and even shot rockets where there was white phosphorus, causing genetic mutations in children up until this day. I don't think that we can just threaten terrorism away. In fact, I think it creates even more. And that whole, going back to that example in the Philippines, with that General Pershing, I looked that up when I got home. And PolitiFact consulted 8 historians, and they couldn't really find any historical evidence, historical base for that story that Trump mentioned, and so did this guy. But the historians were adamant about one fact, and that was that it certainly didn't prevent terrorism. There would have been more terrorism after the time of that general. I did try to, I guess, allow him to talk and inspire seeds of doubt in another area. I said, "Listen, obviously you pay attention to what happens in the military, and I pay attention to what happens in education because I'm a teacher. And I'm really worried about what Trump is going to do with education. He's really for charter schools, and it seems he wants to disassemble public schools, make them something that's for profit for a company, and this is really a worry." And he agreed that that he shouldn't just pay attention to the military because he also has 2 kids. So I guess there was some common agreement, and I mentioned some agreement before at the beginning. And to just tie up the story, his message seemed to be that we need to listen to Trump. What is Trump actually saying? And I think this ties into the media not doing the best job covering Trump. And he was also saying that we need to give Trump a chance when he's in office. He's just got in, give the guy a chance. Of course, I would say, no, he doesn't deserve a chance. He's been upfront about everything that he wants to do for a large part, and we know who's backing him, and we know what the policies are, and they're horrendous. But I didn't say that, so hopefully I get to meet him again, and we've established a little bit of rapport, and we can go a little deeper next time. How'd the contest go?
Hot, tiresome.
Third place goes to Ashlyn Robinson. There you go. Congratulations, mate.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. There you go.
Thanks.
What's in the envelope?
The winner is Rich Boy and an invitation to Melbourne. Ooh, son.
16 years old. Coming in a rip.
Nice.
Nice. 30 left.
Yeah!
Next one.
Woo!
jumping in. He's in a 60-second grand final. $1,000 prize pool. There it is. Claim some redemption on the nollie bunt. Nice. Yes, very nice. 50 across and down. Nice front 5-0 there. Time for one last trip there, Sam. There you go. Nice 50 on the high bit. Oh, massive blind. He got it too.
Food chain Pizza Hut is the latest franchise to be found to be underpaying its workers. The Fair Work Ombudsman says 90% of the Pizza Hut franchisees it investigated were failing to properly pay their delivery drivers.
So I'm outside Pizza Hut. I just stopped in and spoke to the manager about the recent Fair Work Ombudsman audit of Pizza Hut. Out of 34 Pizza Huts, they found only 2 were in full compliance. There was a particular fact which I gleaned from the ABC article that some drivers were being paid as low as $5.70. So the manager couldn't tell me much, but he did offer me the owner's number, so I gave him a call. And the owner told me that he is actually paying his drivers better than most of the other Pizza Hut drivers. Oftentimes other Pizza Huts will charge their employees for food and everything else, he said. But not him. He's the good guy. He gives them free food. He did say that he does pay per delivery, which the manager would not tell me. He didn't tell me how much. But he said the SDA, which they're still in negotiations with, allows them 2 methods. One to pay them around $11 an hour, and then an additional $1 or $2 for delivery. The other second method is pay them a straight amount per delivery. Once again, I don't know how much, but he did say that sometimes on a slow day, he does another good guy thing and gives them extra deliveries, pays them for extra deliveries even though it's a slow day. How much that's true, I don't know. He did admit that one of his Pizza Huts, not this Gawler one, was audited, which I found strange because only 2 of them were found to be in full compliance, but he said that his one is in compliance. I don't know which story is true.